And I'm going to.
Well, we know we've got one attendee, Matt, so that's great.
Yeah, 28 people so far, people coming in. Monica Cornetti is joining us today. Hi, Monica. How's it going?
Hey, Monica, how are you? Great to have you. Great to have you here.
We've got Chris from Whitstable on the call. Hey, Chris. Monica says excellent. Thank you. We've got David from Chile. Welcome, everyone. I think we're going to give it 3 minutes for everyone to get in and get settled, and then we'll kick off. But yeah, please do introduce yourselves in the chat. It's great to see everyone and see where everyone's speaking to from today. Got Frank from Calgary. Brian from Mace Business School. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Brian, good to see you here.
Nimala from South Africa. Hey, Nimala. Sarah from Cardiff. Thanks for joining us. Amanda from South Africa. Caroline from India.
Mozambique, wow.
Mozambique. Very
Venezuela.
international gathering.
Whoa, this is awesome. This is absolutely awesome.
Jacqueline from Venezuela.
Kenya. Oh, wow.
Very global gathering. I love it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I think if we just give it 1 or 2 more minutes, then we'll kick off.
Okie dokie, fantastic.
Started.
Caribbean, wow. I bet that's lovely. Goodness gracious, I'm dreaming of some really good weather on this webinar. It's fantastic. Romania. Okay. Okay, Harry, let me know when we should.
I think let's get started. Yeah, feel free to take it away, Juliet, whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. Well, lovely to see this beautiful, tapestry of global learning and development excellence on the webinar. Absolutely delighted for you all to be here, and thank you very much for making the time. I'm very much looking forward to this second session. If you do have questions, then please just put them in the chat as we go through, and we'll capture them, and then we'll see if we can answer some of them, at the end of the session. So this session, so the seminar series is this is the middle one, the one of 3, the second one of 3, and really this is the subject of AI and technology is huge. Okay, so I have my certain specific interests, which are in and around, instructional design and the science of learning and how we apply AI to improve learning outcomes. But, there are many other sort of ideas and thoughts that are going on out there. And, I'm very interested to know if there are other people that, are thinking about it in the same way or differently than I do. So, please, if there are resources and people out there that you think are doing stuff like we are, then please, let us know, because we are, really interested in seeing how this whole topic evolves. So this session should go on for about 45 minutes, and I'm hoping that we can leave time for questions, although last time we didn't really manage to do that. But let's keep our fingers crossed for this time. And there is a little bit more interactivity in this one, but again, it's quite a lot of theory we're going to be talking about in this one as well. So as I said, the first one was really about AI and neuroscience, and why I wanted to start with AI and neuroscience is we're not building AI for the sake of building AI here. What we're trying to understand is how we can harness the power of AI and AI solutions in order to improve learning outcomes. So a lot of the AI that I see out there that is basically deployed in the edtech space is it's utilizing AI, but it's not actually improving the instructional design or the learning outcomes in the way that I would like to see. And so I really wanted to situate the first talk in this idea of neuroplasticity and how it's incumbent on us when we're working in this space to help people improve their neuroplasticity through a joy of learning, and that kind of feeling of empowerment and that you get when you're curious and you're basically growing through learning new skills. So that was really the first one. This second one is how I've been looking at AI as I've been going through my journey, and how that's informed what we're trying to build at Iridescent and Zavmo AI. So that's the third session in terms of what we've built. So hopefully this gives a nice kind of ramp in that we're not building AI technology for AI technology. We're building it because we fundamentally do feel that there has to be a better way of empowering people's knowledge, especially in a time that we are now, where we've got a fantastic co-pilot that is doing a great job of a lot of the work that we could do ourselves. So in terms of the agenda today, just quickly, who we are, because obviously there's a couple of different players here on the call, but I will just touch on that. Then we're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about the NLP layer. And this is the layer that I think is not really talked about enough. And hopefully by spending a large amount of the presentation in this area, you'll begin to really see the full extent of what could be achieved with this NLP layer. Then we're going to talk about how that really does affect personalization and what that personalization will mean to individual learners. Then we're going to go on to learning tech, so looking very clearly at the difference between SaaS business, SaaS first and AI first businesses, and just looking at the structure of both of those things. So I'm sure all of you on the call have worked with LMSs, LXPs, etc. We're going to really kind of illuminate how and why AI first systems are different and what that means. Doesn't mean the death of the LMS as we know it. It just means they're different platforms, and it's worthwhile just kind of thinking about that. Then we're going to talk about the beauty of AI interfaces, and again, what that means for the learner experience and the adminning experience. And then we're going to talk about how we manage a little bit about how we manage change. And then very, very finally, there's just a QR code if you want to join and be one of our beta testers. So we're looking for beta testers when we launch Zavmo in a couple of weeks' time. So just for those who don't know me, I've obviously spent the majority of my life loving growth engineering and very much just enjoying leading that and working with some of the most fabulous clients in in the world. It has been a great 20 years, but when AI came out, I knew that I had to jump in headfirst into that. And so I'm not really involved in the day-to-day of growth engineering anymore. I really am leading Iridescent and some of the AI research we're trying to do in the area of AI and learning applications. So that's really kind of where I'm at. I can always be contacted through Growth Engineering LinkedIn, and I'm just talking a lot about AI as opposed to growth engineering and gamification. That's my sort of thing at the moment. So yeah, two different companies, but very much working together in harmony, basically, to do what we've always done, which is try and excite and delight the learner, to get them really excited about their growth potential and really unleashing their superhuman spirit within us all. So when growth engineering, we were doing it very much in social and gamification. In Iridescent, we're really trying to maximize the idea of personalization and unique learning paths tailored to individuals. So just a quick, there's obviously a huge amount of interest in AI at the moment in the industry. But still, less than 40% of companies are offering training in AI literacy. And I think this is really interesting when you look at it in the context of future skills. And I think it's coming out this week. I've written a LinkedIn paper on, the 3 Fs of training: future skills, functional skills, and foundational skills. And, it is definitely something that we need to be pushing forward, this idea that depending on what level you are in the organization, you really are either, using AI tools in your everyday work, or if you're at a higher, more senior level, deploying and at least researching AI projects in order to automate and make things more efficient for your organization. Because, overall, going on to the second stat, sorry, apologies, most learners, most leaders do recognize that AI is going to form a significant part of, their company's operation. So it is a vital skill, but that AI training has to be done at the right level in order to actually ensure that the application of the knowledge of AI actually goes back into the company. So there's not a huge amount I can do about the format of the presentation, but it would be good if you guys could just do a little poll for us, just to kind of give me an understanding of how familiar you are with AI and LLMs. So I think Harry is going to launch that so that we can just get a bit of a...
Yeah, I've just launched that now, so we've got the votes coming in. We'll just give that a few seconds for the answers to populate. Don't know if you can see that on your end, Juliet. Is it just on my side?
I am just
If you can just see the slides, it's okay. I can read it out.
okay, yeah. You do you want to
Okay, I'll just give it another 15 seconds or so we make sure people get their votes in. Okay, so the question is, how familiar are you with AI and LLMs? So far, we have 16% saying I have no understanding. Then we have 70% saying I'm familiar with the key concepts, and just 13% saying I have a deep understanding. So it seems like most people are in that middle spot at the moment, which I guess you would expect to a certain extent.
yeah, great. Okay, cool. Well,
Cool.
that's quite helpful. So in terms of, if you are totally and utterly unfamiliar with it, this is Juliet Denny's version of how to kind of make sense of the AI space, because it is definitely one of those things, is that the more time you spend in it, the more you realize that it's a lot more complicated than you first thought. But having said that, there are some basic pillars that are useful to hang on to understand where you are in the AI conversation. So the first thing is what is a LLM? Okay, so a large language model is very simply a huge amount of data. So if you imagine something like, we call them data lakes, just a huge amount of data that basically these models are trained on. So this is basically the data lake that you have to have, that the natural language processing level is going to make sense of, right? So we start with the large language model, and most of the large language models that you will be interfacing with, things like ChatGPT and Claude, I love Claude, are very much, they're open to the internet. They are completely and utterly open to the internet, which obviously makes them not suitable for most corporates. But for those of you who don't use AI or ChatGPT or Claude or whoever it is, Perplexity, they are a really fantastic way of basically just speeding up your efficiency and effectiveness of everything that you do, in work. I mean, I think I would be completely lost without Claude. But obviously they do have some limitations. But overall they really can help if you do a knowledge type job. They are amazing at basically synthesizing data for you, and we're gonna go on to talk a little bit about them. So large language models, the first element is the C, the huge amount of data, and the second thing is this natural language processing layer, which is the layer that really got me excited and made me want to move from what I was doing growth engineering into something entirely new, because they can perform a myriad of tasks, which really does allow us to solve some of the biggest problems we've had in delivering training out historically. And of course, they're always being improved. Now, in terms of the large language models, you know, from Claude and stuff like that, the question is, do you need it much better to do the role that you've currently got? Yes or no? In my case, it would probably be no. What I would say is that by using it every day, it does give you confidence in kind of using AI. So if you're not using AI every day, and you're, I would say download it on your phone, download it anywhere you can, because it is, you know, it can be incredibly useful. So this is a really, really, really basic diagram, but it really does the job in explaining the difference between, you know, because everyone says AI, but we really need to sort of get into the next level in terms of what are we actually talking about when we say AI. So the first area is this data lake. Okay, so this is the idea that you can put anything in the data lake, and the data lake is unstructured. So it's not like typical SaaS databases where the data tends to be well, it's stored in a more kind of linear fashion, right? Within a data lake, it's just vast. The bigger, the better. Whereas, you know, traditional SaaS platforms, you know, you don't want infinite amounts of data. With the data lake, you are for the first time able to just put in huge amounts of data. So an example for us would we have put into our data lake the entire NOS database. So that is the National Organizational Standards. So that's every single role. So this is something that the government, the UK government, decided it was going to invest in after the war, to ensure that there were really high standards across all industries. So there's about, you know, 700,000 NOS standards that cover every industry and every function. So whether you've just come out of school, you know, you're 16 and you're in a customer service role, all the way up to a level 7 in, you know, customer service. So that would be director level. There are standards that you should basically adhere to, or best in class organizations adhere to. And that dovetails into things like ISO, which, you know, many of you will have heard of. And it also goes back to our qualifications. So any vocational or academic qualification. So in our data lake for Zavmo, we have literally put all of this, you know, public information. So the data lake is huge. And rather than, I'm sure if you're from the learning, you'll all be very familiar with SCORM. You know, the way data is usually searched for and, you know, applied in a logical manner is through SCORM. We use in the data lake, we use XAPI. And so you can tag and flag data with a multiple of different types of, you know, things. And again, we're going to go on to talk about how that works with the next thing, the natural language processing layer. And this is where it just makes things really, really interesting, because there's no point having a lot of data if you can't interpret it in the right way. And the natural language processing layer is the bit of AI which just really made me want to go, you know what, I have to go and start a new company looking at specifically how this processing layer can be utilized to make learning more personal. And then the other great thing that you've got is the conversational interface, and this is a seismic shift from the current way we interface with learning platforms, right? So whether it's in the classroom and it's a one-to-many, or it's through e-learning, or it's through video, the conversational interface is a fundamentally different, you know, way of interacting with learning. It's conversational based, either through typing, through voice, or through avatar. It doesn't make any difference, but it's you and that, you know, either one agent or multiple agents, but it's a conversational style of learning, which makes it, you know, truly and utterly unique. And then, of course, you know, you can also push this sort of Zavmo-esque version of this into pretty much, you know, any current learning platform. So hopefully that gives you an idea and breaks down this idea that AI is just what you're experiencing on Claude, because we do need to break it down into the constituent parts in order to kind of understand how we can use it, in our roles, and to improve, the processes that we're trying to manage. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine, okay, that you know everything there is to know about AI. Okay, so you are an AI goddess or god, okay, and you have a series of magic tools that you can use in order to create things. Okay, so we're going to break these 8 magic tools down for you, and hopefully as we move through, you can think about the data lakes you have in your own business. Again, a data lake can be any form of information. You can look at these 8 magic tools and you can start to think about all the creative ways that those magic tools can be, utilized within your data lake. So let's see the first one. So the first one is a decoder device. So this is the first powerful tool that you have. And basically what it can do is it can allow you to understand the context and relationships between 2 different bits of information. Okay, so it can basically effortlessly tag and flag certain information that goes into your data lake. So rather than you having to label it, it will shift through that data and say, okay, I've noticed a pattern here, we're going to flag it and tag it, right? So it basically converts these words into kind of numerical representations that basically can capture the semantic nuance of that piece of information, so that it can be utilized and reported on in, ever increasing imaginative ways. So that's your first powerful tool you've got to look into your data lake. The second thing that you've got is sentiment spectacles. So these sentiment spectacles basically allow you to understand the emotion, the emotional undertones in the language. Okay, so imagine a learner interfacing with an AI. Okay, using your sentiment spectacles, you can begin to understand how engaged they are, how creative they're feeling, how happy they are to continue in their learning. You can begin to understand when they are attentive to the learning. You can begin to understand if they're thinking about applying it. So it can really kind of gauge the sentiment of what the learner is kind of thinking and feeling. And obviously by doing that, let's say you're working with neurodiversity learners, you can slow down the learning. So a good example of this would be, I'm very dyslexic. And so when you're dyslexic, you need to slow the learning down a little bit. You need to spell certain longer words out phonetically, but you also need a lot of praise, because dyslexics have very bad short-term memory, and so in order to basically keep them engaged in the journey. So these are the types of things that you can do with your sentiment spectacles. And then you imagine how sentiment spectacles could be used with regards to people with ADHD, etc. So the sentiments spectacles are really insightful. They can help you understand if a learner is kind of frustrated or really excited. They can even dictate something like sarcasm. So if people are going through conversational learning and they're not really engaging because they think they know already, this is the kind of thing that you can pick up. So you can really begin to get a sense of what people really think about their learning. The next thing that you've got is the translator's transmitter. And this is really just real-time communication. So I can speak to Claude in one way, or I can speak to Zavmo in one way, and it can speak to me, in another language. So, and it can also do it with context as well. So, a good way of seeing the translator's transmission is not only just in terms of language, but also in terms of the way culturally people. So, if you think about some of the issues that we've got with long-term unemployment, for example, particularly in the UK, this area where you can basically shape the learning in a way that certain people that have been disadvantaged and don't have strong educational background can be brought back into education, through these types of things. And then the other thing is, the next tool that you've got an idiom interpreter, and this basically explains the context and the figurative language in and around the communication. So you're making the communication easier, and you're making the communication more enjoyable, and you're delivering confidence. So where you have people that have over a period are not really interested in learning because it wasn't a good experience, or they feel they're too senior for learning, this is somewhere that you can really begin to apply case studies in a way that basically resonates with them to arrest their attention, right? So the idiom interpreter can understands the kind of nuance of non kind of literal language, and it's another tool that you've got in your magic wand set. This is one that we all know really well, and this is a common one that we see in all large language models, but this is basically just guiding you to the most relevant information. So if you have a data lake which is as big as some of these data lakes are, obviously you need to have very, very powerful organization. So it's not, the information is not being organized and indexed in the way that Google organizes and indexes is information. It's much more powerful than that kind of indexed search. You have to be able to find the information that you want, but also you as much as, because the information is coming into the library continuously the whole time, and it's being updated the whole time. This is also a vital part of one of your tools. Then you've also got your syntax staff. So this is basically a powerful tool that represents, understanding of syntax and grammar. And one of the things that I find really interesting working with AI is, of course, being dyslexic, my spelling and syntax and grammar and my construction of sentences is terrible. But, again, the AI can still understand that. And that is incredibly motivating and encouraging for, learners with disability. And it can also help you write a lot better. So it can give people a huge amount of confidence. And we've seen AI being used in schools, and, the impact that it makes on learners just being able to deliver something that they're thinking in their brains, but they can't necessarily put it down on paper. So that's your syntax your syntax staff. And then the next one we've got is the question quill. Well, you've probably seen this, myriad of different learning technologies companies basically creating automated questions. It's very, very simple for the large language model to do, look at this text and create me, 10 questions on the fly, and then, randomize them, and then, change them, on every 24 hours or whatever. So this is basically enables the AI to do that. And then of course you've probably all used summary. So you give it a huge great dump of text, and then you ask it to summarize it or put it into, and again we've seen this in authoring tools. Lots and lots of authoring tools have now got these kind of functionalities. So those are all the things that the NLP layer can do. And I guess, from my point of view, what I see is a very, very limited deployment of all of them. So there are areas that I have seen, like summarize and, create this piece of e-learning or create this quiz, but that's really not getting, in my view, to the heart of, how powerful, AI can be. My belief is that where we need to get to is to do less delivery of learning, through, knowledge. Okay, so this is, you all recognize this. This is the wonderful Bloom's taxonomy here. So, in our previous worlds, whether it was sitting down and actually, in a teacher pupil context where it was one person and a load of pupils, you're basically delivering out that knowledge. So you're right at the number one level here. And the problem is with that is that people aren't paying attention and they don't have the concentration. Our brains are just not wired like that. Although our brains are wired to be permanently curious and we want to learn new things. It's a way of basically us enjoying our lives, if we are learning new things. The reality is current e-learning or one-to-many lecturing in the class is at the bottom. There are very, very few teachers that have the time or the resources, because often it's one teacher and 40 students, or in the case of a piece of e-learning, it could be one piece of e-learning and it's going out to many thousands of people. You're just not able to move up Bloom's taxonomy. And the problem here is that if we are delivering out knowledge, okay, and we're not utilizing or applying it, it is really, really difficult in order to see the value in that, because things aren't changing. The other problem that you've got is that often it's a one size fits all. So if we're doing something like sustainability training, for example, everybody, whether you're a level 2 within an organization or a level 7, you would get the same piece of sustainability training. And again, the issue with that is that you're looking for leaders to start sustainability programs, and you're looking for level 2 or level 3 to be able to weave sustainability conversations within conversations they might be having with their customers, but they're not actually responsible for kicking off sustainability initiatives or XYZ, right? So what we need to do is we really need to focus, in my view. What AI can help us do is really get to this higher order thinking and a way of really applying the learning, which everybody finds more exciting than actually just delivering the information. And I think this comes at a time as well where we have a situation where you can actually get knowledge very, very quickly. You just go to the internet and get it. So it's not like creating content is difficult. There is content everywhere, but learning outcomes aren't necessarily all of that content is not necessarily translating into a better outcome. And so, the real goal with AI, in my view, is to, be able to have an assessment process, which uniquely, identifies, your functional skills, your future skills, and your foundational skills. Be able to provide a tailored learning path that is conversational in nature, in order for you to be mentored and coached in that learning journey, and then being able to ensure that you can actually apply that information through role plays, through coaching, through projects that the organization has. So you're just making it into a much more kind of personal situation. So, what we're looking for is we're looking for tailored learning paths which are completely unique to the individual, right? There's no such thing as a one size fits all. It really should be tailored to, what level within the organization you are, your job description, and where you are in those three types of, skills areas. So, the 3 Fs of training. We also want to make sure that you get content that's relevant to you. And so that's why the conversational type learning is much better than, just a pushed piece of, content, let's say from LinkedIn Learning, because, although it might be leadership, you don't know what level leadership, and you don't know what the outcomes should be in order to show that person has actually, done something on the back of that piece of content. The third thing is conversational learning. So we all like to have to enter into conversations. Some of us might like longer, some like shorter, but at the end of the day, we do much prefer conversational learning as opposed to a piece of e-learning. And so what we need to do is, when we're building out Zavmo, is ensuring that the sentiment analysis in the conversational learning is picking up on things in order to engage the learner to want to come back. The other thing that that we want to recognize is that it may not be one teacher, it might be a series of different agents that are in the that are in that kind of learning environment, so that you might have like a coach, a mentor role, okay, AI agent, as well as teachers for different types of content, and they might be based on subject matter experts within your organization. So again, you can really kind of tailor the learning experience in terms of the personality and the role of that person. The next thing is real-time feedback. We want to be able to ensure that, you know, because we are, you know, focused on trying to ensure that we're maintaining concentration, the learners are maintaining concentration, you have to have real-time feedback, so that you're asking questions, you're clarifying, you're working with the learner in a one-on-one capacity in order to get that real-time feedback. The other thing that we want to do is we want to integrate case studies and you know, role plays and applications that are central to that individual. So, you know, we want them to be exploring case studies that are right for their level, right for their role, right for their industry. So, you know, not just we need a piece of, you know, e-learning which is tailored, you know, to the building industry. No, no, no. We want it tailored to the individual, not the industry and not the company. And we, of course, want to be able to adapt that to the pace. So this is another thing, you know, if you've got ADHD, for example, or, you know, you desperately want to get a promotion, you might be, you know, you can adapt the time and the pace of the learning according to the individual. And also, you know, you should be able to adapt the development path as a whole. So if, for example, you know, new technologies come up and that individual wants to move, you know, to gain more future skills, then of course their learning path should be able to react, you know, to that, you know, depending on what their goals and their ambitions are. And then finally, we want everyone to come out with the ability to get a formal qualification that is recognised by whatever government, so that any skill that happens within an organisation is seen as valuable. So any training you do should be a transportable and passportable skill, which means that we may not be able to award every single qualification on the planet, but we can certainly ensure that no learner ever fails a formal qualification, because we know the assessment criteria that have been, yeah, because that's in the data lake. So we can ensure that we're coaching that person to a high grade to ensure that, you know, they don't get left behind. So these are all the kind of things that you can do with AI. So one of my frustrations is that, you know, there are a lot of bolt-on microservices that don't really get to the heart of really how powerful, you know, you know, AI first application can be. One of my real kind of bugbears at the moment is talent management. So one of the things that, you know, is very clear is that most organizations don't have up-to-date job descriptions. When they do, typically those job descriptions are pertinent when the person first joins. They're not necessarily linked to industry standards, and they're not necessarily reviewed in line with performance. And so if we break it down into, you know, the functional skills, the foundation skills, and the future skills, what we find is that there's a real mismatch between misconnection between learning and development and talent management. So one of the things that we can do, obviously, with our data lake is we can actually ensure that friction ceases to be, because we know where those individuals are based on the information that we're putting into the data lake via NOS and their original job description. So we can really personalize, you know, learning and development to make sure that, you know, we're clear on what our organization as a whole has in terms of, you know, functional, foundational, and future skills. And then we can basically begin to optimize the organization and the organizational talent around that. The other thing that we can do, because we have this hugely kind of connected world, we can also be a lot better at succession planning. So we can really begin to see what the business hasn't got and what the business will need to have in light of industry standards or in light of the competitive environment. So it just gives L&D and, you know, HR and talent management a much better, clearer idea of, you know, what the talent base is, where the talent base is, and what are the options for developing that talent. And the other thing that it gives us is it really is a much closer relationship with regards to how the learner feels about their development, because it is precisely tailored to them and where they want to go in terms of their learning and development journey. So I just want it, because I'm sure that lots of people on the call are really familiar with learning technologies, and I just wanted to include this slide, which just touches on the things that I have really been kind of very, very, I've found this learning journey particularly interesting, moving from traditional SaaS, to AI first. As I say, there are lots of traditional SaaS companies that are bolting on AI microservices and saying, that's good enough. I mean, I think I've sort of been clear in terms of, the scope for AI is far more than just summarization or whatever it might be. But just to put it kind of on a slide, one of the things about traditional SaaS is that the data is quite structured. Most learning management system uses SCORM, but a lot of them use XAPI, and typically they are kind of relational databases. The other thing is that typically, you pay for it, based on the number of users that are using the platform, rather than, necessarily the learning outcome or engagement or any of the stuff that you can actually say, okay, well, the more this is used, likelihood, the better organizational performance we're going to have. It's also, it's very kind of rules based, and it's very heavy on the number of pages. So whether you're a learner or, an admin, there is quite a lot of training and quite a lot of friction in terms of getting up to speed and using that particular platform, which it does wear people out. And so when you launch a new platform, there's a bit of a, oh God, kind of feeling from those either people who have got admin the platform or people have got to use it. The thing is with AI, just running down the list, is first of all, because you are able to put such massive amounts of data into the data lakes, what you can do with that data is just insane. The fact that we're able to put in every single ISO, every single national organizational standard, every single qualification, the UK government, and that's just the first start, before we even move on to other countries. These data lakes are absolutely enormous, and what we're doing is we're tagging and flagging the data as we bring in more data from around the world until they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But also the other thing is because it picks up on every single word, every single sentence, every single context, every single interaction, in order to it learns as it goes. So this is what's really, really exciting about building your own AIs, as we're doing at the moment. So we can really personalize the experience. And then sort of in terms of the model actually retraining itself, one of the things that I think has been quite interesting for us to understand is the importance of organizational personality. So in the same way as we put a lot of work when I was in growth engineering, and the growth engineering team still do, a lot of work goes into ensuring that the platform looks and feels like the organization's platform. A similar sort of thing can be done with the personality of the AI, so that you're basically ensuring that your mission, vision, values are cascaded through the interactions that you have with the conversational interface. And just finally on this slide, one of the things that's really important is the conversational interface makes it there's no friction to basically bringing in a new tool or whatever for customers and for learners, which is a massive thing, not only for learners but also for admins, because everything is done through a really, really simple conversational interface. You don't have to have drop downs, tags, clicks here, clicks here. I mean, it's just a fascinating kind of architecture to work with. So you've got what people see is literally just two different UIs, and then you've just got this complexity, which is the data lake, which is really fascinating to work with in terms of structuring it. So overall, what I believe the future looks like with AI first learning or talent development platforms, whatever you want to call it, is you're going to see much more simplified interfaces. So there's not going to be hours and hours and hours, being spent adminning a system. There's no need. You literally just ask it a question and tell it what you want it to do, and then that will happen. So the UI from an admin point of view will completely adapt to whatever that admin wants to see. From a learner point of view, obviously you've got conversational AI, which is much more akin to coaching. So what I think you will find is that it will begin to look a lot less. People will come into the application a lot more frequently, so little and often, but it will be much more. And but the relationship that you'll have with that AI will be much better than we've ever been able to produce in the world of e-learning. And of course, because it's completely personal, it means that if I'm a level 2, and I'm doing something on team building, and my colleague is a level 2 and is doing team building, and I really love dogs, and he really loves sailing, we could be going through the same learning objectives, the same learning outcomes, but the actual journey of doing that will be interweaved with the things that I'm interested in, like dogs and mountains, whereas he is more interested in sailing, right? So we can personalize not only the level at which we're delivering the learning objectives and learning outcomes, but also the way we write the narrative within the content in order to maximize engagement, which is, for me, is absolutely fascinating. Because if you think about all those people that that have been locked out of education, a good example of this would be my son, who is just as dyslexic as I am. We need to get him maths GCSE. If we can teach him maths at the same time as intertwining that with snowboarding, surfing, and motorbikes, we can teach him maths easily, because we have basically we've got his attention, and that's the important thing in order to basically start learning things. So I think this idea of contextual interactions is going to be absolutely fascinating as we take people on a development journey. Not only will they be able to see what the route looks like from I want to go to a level 2 to a level 7, but we'll also be able to tailor every interaction in and around the things that they are interested in order to maximize their curiosity. And the other thing is, of course, is that with AI, because we're holding the data that we collect into the data lake, we're also able to not ask the same information over and over again. So the more time the learner spends on the platform, the better understanding you will have of the Zabmo will have of the learner, and therefore the more interesting the learning should be to the learner. So it's this continuous cycle of improvement as this kind of journey moves forward. So it's absolutely clear to me that we are on on the brink of a huge revolution. I mean, we all know that AI is going to impact the role of many jobs. But I think specifically when it comes to learning, it's incredibly exciting, because we are able to, with AI and AI-powered solutions, we are able to unlock human potential in a way that we have never really been able to. We are now, for the first time, able to create every single learning interaction that is unique to that learner in order to allow them to basically reveal the best of themselves. And so for me, whilst other while other industries might be worried about how AI is going to impact, I think for us working in talent and learning development, this is a time where we should be unbelievably excited about what we can deliver to our organizations. And I personally think that the other revolution that will happen is that learning will become the most important department in a lot of these companies. We are going to be spearheading a revolution in allowing this huge wave of creativity and engagement from learners, and I think we need to lead in the front with it. But I just think the idea of being able to ensure that no learner is ever left behind, for me, really, just fills me with so much passion for, this industry. And I'm sure that's why you guys are on the call as well. So yeah, it's just a very, very exciting time. So I think, what L&D leaders, need to do is really focus on, this idea of developing a continuous learning culture, because the continuous learning culture really only comes alive when we can give proper skills gap analysis. So there's no point have it saying we want a continual learning culture if there's no benchmark to say, okay, well, what and where do I need to study in order to reach my own ambitions, but also deliver the company's goals as well. So we really do need to tie in L&D with proper kind of talent management, which of course we can do with these huge data lakes. The other thing is we really have to stop delivering knowledge and start delivering work-based application type projects. And we can do that with AI, even if it's on a one-to-one basis, i.e. the AI and the learner, by doing individual scenarios based on your role, doing case studies. We can really get them to apply the learning, and by doing that they will be more engaged because it's a more exciting element of how we use our brain. And then the final thing that I think is, once we benchmarked everybody and we really do know who's a level 5 and who's a level 3 or whatever, it opens up all sorts of possibilities for mentoring and a knowledge share, because we know that if you are a level 2 and working in a customer service role and you want to basically be mentored by somebody higher up that's also in customer service, we know where that person is, and we can make that connection very, very easily if that person has flagged that they want to play that they want to play that role. Now, if they flag they don't want to play that role, that's also fine, because we can just basically put in an agent that can be asked questions in and around any question that a level 2 might have. So we can also use multiple agents to play different roles depending on how we want the learning to take place in the organization. But to summarize it, I can really see that we are moving solidly away from this idea of a one-to-many. So build one piece of e-learning and then it goes out to many people, into a much more kind of one-to-one relationship, because this is what we can do with the power of a large data lake, systems of RAG, so everybody has individual kind of short-term memory repositories, so we know how you're reacting, and so we can tailor the education to you, and then obviously a really easy conversational interface. So that basically summarizes, the talk, and we've got 8 minutes. So Zavmo is obviously the product that we are trying to, develop with all of this kind of functionality, and it would obviously be fantastic to get some feedback. It's certainly not so this is just the beta program. It's certainly not a finished product, but it gives you an idea of conversational learning, and it will also give you an idea of what we're looking for in terms of the roadmap. And obviously we'd just be delighted to get as many of the esteemed people on the call as possible to just give us your thoughts on anything to do with kind of AI and learning. So I've managed to give us 7 minutes, Harry.
Awesome. Okay, well, guys, if you've got any questions, please do feel free to drop them in the chat. We do have a question from Monica, who asks, will organizations have security concerns or proprietary information concerns with this unique type of customization?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that no client wants to basically be open to the open internet. So these data lakes are specific to each client. So because that all the client needs to do, I say all the client needs to do, is decide what standards they want. So in the first case, so in the first beta version, we're going to be using NOS, and then we're going to be using Ofqual to create the content. So, but you can use any other benchmarking that you want, and we just throw that into the data lake. But this isn't the open. So there are a lot of tools out there that go, okay, I want you to create me a course in, I don't know, road safety or something. And that's just attached to the internet. Well, I mean, none of the clients that we work with are going to be happy to basically just grab information off the internet like that. That is, you might as well just use Claude or any of the things that, you know, we use as a consumer. If you're using it within the confines of a organization, then, you know, you need to approve everything that's going into your data lake. And, you know, the natural language processing layer can only search the information, you know, that is in that data lake. So it can't go rogue. Basically it can only utilize its powers, you know, within the data lake that it operates in. So I hope that answers the question.
Great stuff. Any final questions here before we look to wrap up? Monica said thank you for the answer. Thanks, Monica. Just give it a few more. Here's a question from Constance. How do you access AI for online instructors to use for students?
How do you access AI for online instructors to use for students? It depends on the context. Is this for, have you got a specific have you got, I mean, obviously there are loads of models out there now, that open ones like ChatGPT and, you know, Claude. But you probably just need to dive into the next level to find out, you know, where they're getting their information from. So for us, our commitment in Zavmo is to ensure that content is only created based on national standards. And so that is the bit that slightly worries me when, you know, students are using, you know, OpenAI, for example, for their homework or whatever, because it is the open internet, and, you know, it's not necessarily, the assessment criteria is not necessarily the same as the assessment criteria, you know, for the awarding body that your students are basically learning within, if you understand what I'm saying. So you just need to be really careful, because what you don't want is, you don't want students learning stuff that isn't necessarily tied to learning objectives, learning outcomes, and assessment criteria within, you know, the awarding body that they're studying under. So yeah, a bit of a complex answer to that one, but yeah, I mean.
Right. We have another question from Aziz as well, who asks, how can homeschooling parents use AI to foster emotional and academic development in a home setting? Are there any distinct usage or strategies for L&D leaders in homeschooling learning environments with parents and children?
I think the way I would answer that is, I think one thing that's quite important is, when you are homeschooling, is that there are multiple different agents working with the child, because otherwise it can get really lonely. So you know, one of the things that is really important is that you're getting different types of perspectives. So when you go into an AI application, something like Zavmo, not in beta, but, you know, in the future, you will have different types of agents that perform different roles. So you might have a role that basically operates like a coach and mentor. You might have a role that operates in a work context, as a boss. You might have an agent that operates as a you know, you know, a reportee. And so I think that's what that's what could be really powerful in homeschooling. Not that you've got one relationship, but that you might have many.
Great stuff. And maybe we'll just take this final question from Aziz as well. How can we ensure that AI is used to complement rather than replace the role of human educators in the classroom or at home?
I think that's a really interesting one as well, because I think you know, I think it's one of those things that it's who is the best teacher and who is the best coach. I mean, there are lots of kind of roles that kind of you know, parents can parents can play, but I'm not sure all parents are, brilliant instructional designers or, brilliant coaches or tutors. They might choose to play one of those roles, but invariably you're going to get AI being able to perform, you know, some good roles as well. So I think it depends what outcome, you want. The thing that I just keep coming back to is not necessarily is the data lake. Where are you getting your information from? Like this is the thing that I think is really, really important within the education arena. We can't be, using data lakes that are basically in the open internet. We need to make sure that, the data lakes we're using, are defined by clear standards, so that, the AI doesn't start, making things up. But I mean, hopefully what we should see is as we start to use AI more, it will basically free up more time for humans to do things they want to do rather than things that they have to do. And I think that's the same as learning. If you ask most teachers what's the bit they love, they don't love necessarily standing in front of the classroom and just talking at students. What they love is sitting down and discussing the ideas, seeing how much joy and enthusiasm the kids have in the classroom. And I think that's the bit that, we should focus on, freeing up, teachers and humans to be, to do what they love doing, rather than the stuff that has to be done, that can be done by agents.
Great stuff. Well, we've just hit the hour, so maybe we will wrap things up there. But I want to thank everyone very much for joining us today. Thank you for your questions and for your engagement throughout. It's been great. We will follow up after this session with an email that contains the recording, and we'll include the slides in there as well, as a few people have requested that. But yeah, thank you so much. Don't forget to join us for the third and final session, which is in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully we'll see as many of you there as possible. And yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Cheers.